Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Apex Racing TV, and welcome back to the Detroit Region SCCA Sim Racing Series presented by Superlap. This is the 6th and final round of the season, coming to you tonight from Lime Rock Park. My name is Ron Mullins. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Charles Bichelle, and in the virtual production hall we have our old buddy Josh Wilkie. Well, folks, it all comes down to this. The season is about to be drawn to a close, and while the championship may already be sorted, with Russell Soto having that squared away, this season has still been incredibly exciting, and I think we still got one more fantastic race in our back pocket. Charles, we're heading to a track where, much like a cup of hot cocoa on a cold fall day, a race at Lime Rock Park can just be good for the soul. So, Charles, what are your thoughts heading into this final race of the season?
Yeah, I think that this is, a perfect car track combination. It's going to be an amazing race. We're using the Grand Prix configuration, which means we're going to have that first chicane they're going to have to deal with. And we had a very interesting discussion off air about the chicane versus the hill. I think each one presents its own set of challenges, especially those little apex mountains there in the chicane, little orange diamond curbs to help prevent people from maybe taking a little too much of the track limit. So it's going to be a fun race. Like I said, it's a good car track combo, and I'm looking forward to a really strong race from these drivers.
Oh, it's going to be an exciting day. It's going to be an exciting day of racing action, or an exciting night of racing action. I feel like most of the people tuning into this broadcast are probably in the U.S., so it will be an exciting night of racing action here. 30 minutes long, as it has been throughout all of this season. It's been a very good season for a lot of drivers up and down the grid. We'll quickly run through the other qualifying results that we had, because qualifying, of course, not being covered with this broadcast. However, we will be able to bring you all of the racing action. Russell Soto, as he has done all throughout this season, grabbing another pole position, as I mentioned in my intro, with 4 victories of 5 races contested thus far this season, and 2 drop rounds. He's pretty much sealed the deal when it comes to the championship. He is untouchable. Kevin rolled in P2 in the position he usually finds himself in, with the likes of Aaron Reuter, Lincoln Olsen, Dominic Batts running at your top 5 starters. We'll, of course, run through the starting grid come time for that race session to click over on iRacing in a couple of moments' time. You can see the rest of the qualifying order there. Some of those Superlap cars still running at there on the racetrack. Currently in the midst of a warm-up session right now, and you can see as we are following, this is the number 14 car of Andrew Mowat, who's currently at the top of this warm-up session, heading his way through that Grand Prix chicane, which, as you just said, Charles, that is such a tricky section. You got those red buns of evil on the inside. That's really the only way that I could describe it. I have some very bad memories of hitting that in a Skip Barber car, having my rear suspension snap like a worn-out toothpick, and having my race come to a very heartbreaking conclusion. But we're hoping for an exciting conclusion here from the DRSCCA Sim Racing Series. This season has been fantastic, and to put on this fantastic racing and these broadcasts, we need to have some fantastic partners, and believe me, with the DRSCCA Sim Racing Series, we have got them in spades. Coverage of the DRSCCA Sim Racing Series on Apex Racing TV is brought to you by the DRSCCA. The Detroit Region Sports Car Club of America, aka the DRSCCA, has been providing motorsports events since 1948. With over 1,400 members, there is no shortage of knowledge, history, and trailblazing ideas like this Sim Racing League. Thank you to all the participants and spectators for being a part of the augmentation and evolution of the region. The DRSCCA, of course, goes far beyond the virtual realm. In 2024, the region is hosting over 40 events over 60 days that can get you both behind the wheel or so close to it that it'll blow your hair back. The gamut of behind the wheel events includes road racing, road rally, rallycross, autocross, and a competition driving school. Support for the Detroit Grand Prix, Formula SAE programs, and Street Survival are also amazing opportunities to help sculpt future and professional drivers. Check out DRSCCA.org for more information. Additionally, we would like to thank Waterford Hills Road Racing, Metro Detroit's only permanent sanctioned road course. Waterford Hills, located in Clarkston, Michigan, hosts a 6-weekend race series, competition driving school, and 9 public open track days. The track is hot from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on these event days and is open to the public. A nominal $5 entry fee is all it takes for you to get close to the action. Check out waterfordhills.com for more details. An additional thank you goes to the Michigan Turn Marshals for their support as well. If you'd like to get close to the action, be sure to check out michiganturnmarshals.org. They can train you to support races like the 2025 Detroit Grand Prix. And last but certainly not least, we would like to thank the supporting partner of the DRSCCA series, that being Superlap. Located on the world-renowned Woodward Avenue in Berkeley, Michigan, Superlap is a sim drive studio, a space to meet and compete. With professional-grade racing simulators, they are a premier racing and driving experience venue. They will help you achieve your motorsports goals with education, practice, and training. If you're a race fan, you may be familiar with Formula One. Well, interestingly enough, the reigning 3-time Formula One world champion is a pretty big proponent of sim racing. If Max Verstappen uses a sim, shouldn't you? You can race and practice against an AI roster, go head-to-head with other humans, or both for that matter. They also offer league play like the DRSCCA League. Go to superlap.world for details. Thank you to all the partners and people who make this series and these broadcasts possible, and now on with tonight's action. And we are back with the racing action from the season finale here for the Detroit Region SCCA Sim Racing Series presented by Superlap. The warm-up session out of the way so we can bring that starting grid up in just a couple of moments' time for what is set to be a really great night of racing action to bring this season to a close. Some troubling sections that may catch some of these drivers out, but it's still going to be a whole lot of fun to bring this exciting season to a close. And it's going to be Russell Soto, the driver of the number 50 car, starting this race from the familiar position, the pole position for the driver of the number 50 car. Kevin Rold, the driver of the number 5, going to join him on the front row. We have Aaron Reuter starting in 3rd. Lincoln Olsen going to join him on the 2nd row. Then we have Dominic Batts in 5th. Andrew Mowat in 6th. He showed a decent amount of pace in that warm-up session we just had. So let's see the driver of the number 14 car, how he may do in this race we have coming up. Then we have Sean Fritz in 7th. Ryan Goff in P8. Trenton McMillian going to be starting this race from the 9th position. And riding at your top 10 is going to be Sean Gaynor.
Yeah, starting in 11th, Andrew Gross. Michael Smith in 12th. Roll on to the next page. And we've got Chad Goodell in 13th. Eric Christensen in 14th. Jake Roberts 15th. Eugene Clark in 16th. Michael Rodriguez in 17th. Superlap 8th. In 18th, Andrew Mallory in 19th. And the Superlap admin in P20, who I don't think is going to be on the grid. I think maybe he just he maybe just logged into the session wrong. So never done that before ever, he says.
Neither have I, Charles.
Yeah.
Neither have I. I remember doing race control for a pretty big series here on Apex Racing TV, the Rikmatech World Challenge, and it was like my second or third time ever in race control, and I loaded in as a driver, and I felt like the biggest doofus in the world. The other broadcasters, Mr. Greg Ginsburg and Larry Lefty McLeod, having to read out my name well on the air and have it be known that I was ridiculed to it's a hell and back to say the very least. But he could see this field heading through a section which I feel like is going to be hell, especially on lap 1. That chicane, I think I've said this on the air in the past, it's like threading the eye of the needle with the needle attached to a Saturn V rocket traveling at escape velocity. I don't even feel like that sentence is accurate. It's so tricky trying to head through that section, especially in cars like these Formula 4s. Don't want to pick up any sort of damage, don't want to have any sort of unusual curb wax because you may either hit a competitor, a wall, or both at the same time. But these drivers waiting to get this race underway, the final race of the season. The field now in the hands of our pole sitter, Russell Soto. He's going to be joined on the front row by the 5 of Kevin Rold, waiting for that green flag to come out, which it has now. The drivers are on their way. Stack up a little bit farther in the back. That's Dominic Batts getting off to a terrible start. He's going to be dropping down the running order, heading off into turn number 1, as that's a huge crash involving Batts in the number 12. He hits the outside barrier. That's going to take him out of contention very early on into this race. I believe the other car involved in that was the 15 of Ryan Goff. So 2 of the drivers starting this race solidly inside the top 5, already taking each other out, heading off into Big Bend for the first time, but about to head their way through the chicane for the first time. This is such a tricky section. You got to be so cautious. Usually hear about the yellow flags being thrown around the hairpin at Macau. Really, that section needs exactly that same treatment, but it looks like most of the field heading it through cleanest. I think that's a spin for Rodriguez in the 55 car. A little bit farther in the back, there's the wrecked race car of Dominic Batts, a 12 car, mega slow. I think he just stopped and has had to tow back to pit lane, but either way, most of the field completing this first lap clean. It's Soto in front of Rold, in front of Olsen, rounding out your podium.
Yeah, it was a really good start for the most part. As you said, the issue with Batts, I think he maybe got a little too aggressive, or maybe the cars in front of him. I think he was the 4th car in line or 3rd car in line at the start of the race. I don't think we're going to get a replay here. That's Ryan Goff working his way around and trying to make his way around the track here. And yep, just slides the car a little too far outside the normal racing line. Too much heat, spins it, comes into the pits. He's going to get his car repaired. The Batts in there as well, but I think it's just basically a mix-up at the start of the race. A couple cars didn't get a great start, kind of checked Batts up, and then put him in no man's land. We'll see here now with the replay. See Batts there in the middle, and yep, just nowhere for him to go. You can't go 3 wide through turn 1 on the start of the race, or pretty much any time during the race, but especially at the start with the cold tires and cold brakes. And nowhere for him to go, and gets caught up, and that's it. It's going to put him on the back foot for the remainder of the race if he comes back.
And we're going to take a look at another angle of this incident for Dominic Batts in that number 12 car. Really no room to run or hide, hang down into turn number 1, breaking that suspension and just augers straight into that outside tire barrier. That's a really rough start for him, but nope, stuff can happen. Tough break for Batts, a really heartbreaking way to end this season for him, but fingers crossed we'll see him wherever it is in the not-too-distant future from this series. Looking at the drivers still running in this race, though, a little bit of a gap developing between Aaron Reuter running in 4th and Fritz running in the 5th position, as we see Michael Schmidt popping in out of existence, as that's the Superlap 3 car. Jake Roberts, the driver, the number 8, going for a spin, a wild spin, heading through turn number 2. Big Bend has already caught out some drivers early on into this race. Roberts just being the latest victim, going for a spin in that number 8 car, so the Superlap competitor running into some difficulties early on into this race, as we see the front 3 still covered by practically nothing. Soto, Rold, and Olsen covered by only 0.8 of a second at the front of the field.
Yeah, it was, and we didn't really talk about it very much, but the top 4 cars in qualifying were only separated by 3/10. So this may be another challenging race for Soto. He's managed to be successful every other race. But you know, we've got some guys that are behind him that can keep up with him. So we'll see how long they can stay in this train, or if they start getting a little feisty.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see if these drivers are going to get really antsy, really racy, if they're going to risk it for the biscuit or risk it for the Trisket if you're feeling the low-calorie option. Geidel running into some difficulties in the number 42 car. He's had to go down to pit lane, so not sure exactly what happened to him. There he is. There is Chad Geidel. So not sure exactly what may have gone wrong. Maybe an incident. Stopped in his pit stall now. Gotta say, these drivers do not have a fast repair at their hands, so if they run into some major trouble out there on the racetrack, they're going to be done for. Can already see a little bit of front wing damage possibly invoked by a bad curb whack, and that's the bad wall whack, hitting the curb on the inside. I don't even think it was down to that, Charles. I think he may have just goosed on the throttle a little bit early and lost control.
Yeah, I think you may be right. I think he just basically had the wrong line on entry in there, and maybe caught the curb and kicked him over. Probably locked the brakes down at that point, and then it's just a slide into the wall. You can see the right front damage on the car as we get another replay from on board. Just working his way down into that chicane. Just a little too much, maybe too much throttle trying to get through the middle part of the chicane. And as you see the result, he's in the pits getting the right front suspension repaired as well as the front nose cone.
Yes, that's going to be a pretty lengthy trip into the pits for Geidel. Tough break to have that sort of mistake heading through that section. But again, Charles, it's something that should be kind of expected in a section like that. It is really tough. Take a look at another incident, this time involving Andrew Mallory. You can see him in the number 9 car, heading his way off into that chicane section. Big lockup into the corner that gets him all sorts of squirrely heading through. May have been just a simple overslow as a result of that lockup, deciding not to take to the grass. And honestly, Charles, I'm surprised we haven't mentioned this point thus far in this show. The grass on the outside of that Grand Prix chicane section, for some reason it is, I'm not sure what it is, but that like gives you the longest slowdowns, it feels like, in the world of iRacing. I mean, in fairness, like a 4-second slowdown around here is about tenth of your lap time. So I guess based off the distance of the lap, that could be the reason why. Is I think that was another off-track moment. Is that possibly, trying to see, I think that may have been Mallory off the track yet again. So that was a simple spin for him, I believe. Is it Mallory? Mallory? I'm not entirely sure. I apologize, Andrew. Fair enough. So I'll stay with that with you. Charles Mallory it is. Nearly making contact with the Superlap 8 car heading off through the chicane section. So near disaster with the drivers of the 10 and the 9 car respectively. Heading through that section. Close quarters racing, to be sure, occasionally can have some moments like that happen. I'd say lap traffic now becoming a factor in this race as Soto, Rold, and Olsen, and that pack that we still have at the front of this field haven't spread out either. They're catching up to the Superlap 8 car running in the 14th position as it stands at the moment, so we may end up seeing that lap traffic play a bigger role than we probably had in mind heading into this race.
Yeah, I think you may be right. I think we're going to end up, it looks like Christensen may be off the track somewhere or just rejoining. Or maybe off again, as well as Mallory. Yeah, I mean, they've been running really solid close lap times up there, as we see Christensen. Looks like he maybe backed himself into the Armco there. Nice, I was going to say nice rejoin, overcooked it just a little bit there. So, yeah, it's, you know, the trouble with short tracks is if you get a pretty wide spread of abilities, racing ability, then you're going to encounter that traffic a lot quicker than you normally would if we were at a bigger track like we were last week, and or we were when we were at Spa. So it's, you know, it's going to be one of those that, or I'm sorry, Road America, I should have said. But yeah, it just was part of it is dealing with lap traffic. You got to make your way around safely, and we'll see if the Superlap 8 car decides that he wants to give way and let these guys race past him and let him continue on with his race.
Oh, I don't have a good feeling about this at all. Charles Russell Soto is going to be irritated with that lap traffic. He's now fallen into the crutches of Kevin Rold. Look at Lincoln Olsen, though, with a beautiful run, heading down that start-finish straightaway, trying to get that overtake done on that Superlap 8 car, the number 10 on the outside line, giving those race leaders hells. He goes off the track coming out of the corner. He's going to spin and take a one-way trip into the barriers. That's going to take him out of contention. Be very careful here on the rejoin. Looks like he's going to rejoin the race somewhat smooth. A little bit of another snap of oversteer. That's another thing with these Formula 4 race cars. The overcooking of the tires can be such a detriment to these racers, but it looks like Superlap 8 going to rejoin without any further incident. Got to take a look at a replay of this drama for that Superlap 8 entry. You can see him sideways, slideways through the corner, overcooked it a little bit, trying to get out of the race leader's way, hit that grass and just took a one-way trip into a spin. Didn't hit the barrier as I may have suggested, however, certainly flat spotting those tires.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you saw the aftermath of getting those tires overheated. Makes it very difficult to keep the car going in a straight line. Yeah, we get the blue flags here at iRacing that says, hey, you've got faster traffic coming up from behind. You are not obliged to move over for that traffic. This is not Formula One, so you don't have to give way. But if you've got a train of three and it's the lead pack, and they're passing you down the front straight, probably a good idea just maybe lift a little bit, let them go ahead and get through. But some of these guys are fairly new to the iRacing thing, and so the racecraft is something that they have yet to learn, but they'll figure it out as they go.
Yeah, these drivers, I wouldn't say winging it at this stage of the race, but they're testing the water, so to speak. It's like, It's very much so like kind of like dipping your toes into the pool, so to speak, to see if the water is too cold or what. That's a point that these drivers find themselves in at the moment, despite the fact we have 10.5 minutes on the board. They're still not entirely sure about their limits in terms of how their cars are feeling, how they're feeling coming into this race, and also having to worry about some competitors that some of these racers may not have gotten the opportunity to battle hard with thus far. Gotta say, Lincoln Olsen, he's had a pretty wild season up to this point. However, we haven't really seen him involved in some of these battles in terms of battling for an overall victory. So I think at this point in time, Lincoln Olsen's certainly trying to figure out what works, throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks and what drops down to the carpet. As we're taking a look through the field, so Reuter and Fritz, this is Andrew Gross. A little bit spread out is a decent chunk of the field, as you've got Reuter 7 seconds back of Soto, Fritz 11.5 seconds back of the race leader of Soto. Gross is about 15 seconds back. You have to go back another 2 seconds to this man, Michael Schmidt. Then you have to go another 1.5 seconds, shall we say, to Sean Gaynor. Can just barely see him in the back of shot. There he is in the number 22 car. Then you have to go back a long ways to find the likes of Andrew Mowat and Trent McMillan, who are rounding out your top 10 as it stands at the moment. And actually, right as I say that, McMillan may have just lost out a spot to Roberts, possibly with a mistake heading through the first few corners, because I think he's lost out on a whole lot of time over the past few seconds as we see some side-by-side fighting heading into the corner. That is the number 14 of Andrew Mowat getting past the Superlap 8 car. Certainly feeling risky for a move like that heading into the chicane. A little bit shocked that we're seeing some moves like that, because I don't know about you, Charles, but seeing a driver go side-by-side heading through that section, it gives me the heebie-jeebies, to invoke a little bit of 1920s radio terminology.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's, you're still trying to race, and so, Mowat's trying to make up the gap if he can, up to Gaynor. So he's trying to keep his pace up, and, when you counter that lap traffic, and Superlap 8's kind of struggling a little bit here. So you see them working their way down. He's a little bit offline there in the middle part of that no-name straight, and then a little lock-up going into the chicane because he's on the outside, and Mowat able to make the way around. And it looks like the lead group is starting to make their way up to Christensen. Could be coming up to the back of him pretty quick.
Yeah, we may end up seeing a convergence between Eugene Clark and Christensen. One behind the wheel, the number 73 car, the other, the chasing car, in the number 13, running in 13th as it stands at the moment. However, I have a feeling that is not going to remain the case for the next few moments as Eric Christensen is reeling in the competitor of Eugene Clark right in front of him. But Christensen running a little bit wide heading through that section, the second to last corner of West Bend, trying to take it around the outside but going off into the grass. A wild ride off the circuit, and it looked like he was still able to stay alongside Eugene Clark, so well done from Christensen. They're also having to deal with the leaders coming up to them. That's Russell Soto getting past. You can see Rold and Lincoln Olson trying to deal with that traffic as well. Gotta say, that front pack breaking up a little bit as we saw those cars covered by about, what was it, 7/10 of a second not terribly long ago. They're now covered by 1.2 seconds with a pretty big door wedge slammed in between Soto and Rold of about 0.8 of a second. We'll see if that closes up, but considering they're still having to deal with the traffic of Christensen, we may see that gap actually grow as they still have not been able to deal with that number 13 car heading their way through West Bend, and a near bit of contact with Rold and Olson.
Yeah, for sure. Olson had to really lift off to keep from running into the back of Rold. And yeah, it's just when you're passing that lap traffic now, that's got a natural wedge in between P1 and P2. And so they're going to have to figure out a way to get around. Oh, I think that was their way around right there. It was like Christensen made a little mistake there through the corner, had to make a correction on the wheel and enable those guys to get to the inside and get by. And that's just part of the racing deal, is navigating lap traffic as well. But these guys up front are putting on a pretty good show. It's a pretty torrid pace. They've already lapped up to P12, and they're only just 5 or 6 seconds behind Trenton McMillian in P11.
As we're going to take a look at a replay of a moment involving Andrew Mallory in the number 9 car. You can see him running a little bit wide heading into turn number 3. The left-hander just goes for a simple spin. No harm, no foul outside of a little bit of a flat spot on those 4 tires and maybe a slightly dented ego as well. Continue to see those connection issues for Michael Schmidt. So clearly, some drivers employing some strategies despite the fact these races are 30 minutes long and you don't have to worry about pit stops. Some drivers clearly trying some different internet connection strategies, and clearly the serial box Wi-Fi router not helping out Michael Schmidt at all, as we see this side-by-side fight with Lincoln Olson and Kevin Rold heading down the start-finish straightaway a couple of moments ago. Olson on the outside line, Rold on the inside. They're side-by-side heading off into the corner. Olson trying to hold strong. A little bit of contact made between those two, I think, Charles, as it looks like they finally single file out heading into turn number 3 with Lincoln Olson getting the nod to slip his way up into P2.
Yeah, good pass. Stayed on the outside, kept his foot in it, and was able to work his way around. As they make their way down the front straight here, you'll see a nice overhead shot. Thanks, Josh. You see Olson on the outside. You see a little smoke from a car in front, one of the lap cars, that they're coming up on. And Olson just did a good job of just staying in there, stay on his line. Maybe a little bit of contact between the two, but finally got the inside line, was able to make the pass. Nice job.
Yeah, well done there, but we're looking now at a very treacherous position that Andrew Gross finds himself embroiled in at the moment, trying to overtake Michael Schmidt while Michael Schmidt keeps arming and disarming his invisibility cloak heading through this racetrack. So that is a terrifying ordeal to have to deal with if you are Andrew Gross. Charles, trying to do any sort of side-by-side fighting in iRacing, especially in open-wheel race cars where a little bit of contact can result in someone going into low Earth orbit and probably landing their way off in Providence, Rhode Island, considering the proximity to that here in Connecticut for Lime Rock Park. But this is a very tough position to find in if you are Andrew Gross. And I think him being a little bit cautious because of the connection issues for Michael Schmidt, that may bring Sean Gaynor into this fight.
It may do it, as we'll watch it here as they're coming through turn 2. There's only one thing really worse than getting behind a car and then it blinking out and you not knowing where it is that when you're having connection issues and then all the cars blink out. And that's the scarier proposition. I've kind of been in that situation a couple of times where your connection goes bad and then all of a sudden you blink and then everything disappears. It's just you and the track. You have no idea where anything else is. So it's a scary proposition on both sides. But yeah, it's very difficult to race a car when you don't know where they're going to pop back into the back in onto your monitor So yeah, caution is the code word there. Ooh, and there's the curb, catching another victim. Andrew Mowat.
And that latest victim is Andrew Mowat in the number 14 car. A simple mistake to make, to be sure. Lots of drivers getting caught out by the curbs, as that's Michael Schmidt going around. So it looks like that storyline developing with that fight between himself, Gross, and Gaynor has really turned to naught as he's going for a spin, hang through turn number 3. Gonna hopefully try and find the replay to see what exactly went wrong involving Schmidt. Maybe some connection issues causing a little bit of contact between these two. Not entirely sure. Here is a replay following the 129 car of Michael Schmidt. Heading into the corner right now. Looks like no blinking cause that. Looks like just losing control. That was very odd, Charles. He just snapped around. Trying to think of the best way I can compare that. Looked like watching a karting race when someone seizes their motor up. That car just spun around on a dime.
Yeah, I just couldn't really tell if maybe he had to correct and maybe tap the brakes at the wrong point of the corner. But to me, maybe just it looked like he just a little too much speed going through there and not enough downforce to cope with it. He was doing a lot of, his line was really kind of outside in, so had a pretty decent line, but maybe just too much for the rear tires to cope with. Maybe got him a little overheated and made it that much more difficult to make it through the corner. So happens, luckily nobody made contact and he's able to get back and resume his race and everybody can continue on with theirs.
Yeah, being able to rejoin the race without any further incident and giving us a pretty good battle to follow involving Schmidt and Mowat. Those two drivers now running in 8th and 9th, covered by about 0.4 of a second as it stands at the moment. A little bit farther up the road from this man, Russell Soto, who continues to lead this race, now about 3 seconds in front of Kevin Rold in P2. An uncontested P2 as the gap between himself and Lincoln Olsen has ballooned now to about 4 seconds. So not sure what happened between those two not terribly long ago. Actually, it would be 3 seconds, you can tell. I was always great in math at public school, but Lincoln Olsen dropping down a little bit. Gonna try and see what may have possibly happened to Lincoln Olsen, looking through to see what sort of lap times he's been setting as of late. Looking like there wasn't a single lap in which he kind of just dropped back like a rock. So this is a little bit odd. Gonna try and find this replay to see exactly what went wrong involving Lincoln Olsen's race. The driver of the number 16 car, you can see him heading his way through right now. And you can see that terrifying moment heading downhill under the bridge towards the end of the lap. That's another thing that I'm not sure if a lot of people know of in the world of iRacing. I learned it on some of the first few laps I ever did on the service. There's a manhole cover. Actually, no, I'd say it's probably more of a storm drain there, not a manhole cover. The F1 Las Vegas Grand Prix has me saying things that I don't actually mean. But the storm drain heading under that bridge, I don't know about you, Charles. I've hit that at times, and a very wild ride. I think I struck a Ben & Jerry's factory a few states away because of that storm drain.
Yeah, I think I've hit that once or twice myself, but it's you have to work to get it. I mean, it's not like it's you could see his entry or his coming through that corner. He was way out in the grass already. Just trying to carry as much speed as he could through that section to get under the walkover bridge, and so. You get offline and there's things that you'll end up finding that you didn't know were there before. So I think, sometimes you find out the hard way. I think he got away with one there, just kind of made his car jump a little bit, cost him some time. So now he's no longer fighting up there with Rold for the P2, but still able to race. And he's got Reuter, has been working pretty hard to try and make that gap up. He hasn't lost a ton of time. And so he's only 2.5 seconds back. So that might be a battle toward the end of this race.
Speaking of Easter eggs around this racetrack, I'm curious, Josh. I'm not sure what camera pack you've got loaded at the moment. Can we possibly pull up the Stephen Dale cam? Do we have that for the camera packs here on Apex Racing TV for this one? I'm not entirely sure. Not sure if we do. I don't believe so. That's a shame because the Stephen Dale cam is always nice to see. That's a little bit of iRacing lore for you. So Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Steve Myers, both of both people who are very much invested in iRacing, both with their money and with their interest. And I feel like when you think of Dale Earnhardt Jr., you probably don't think of iRacing, but he is very invested in the world of sim racing. And yeah, every single racetrack on the iRacing platform, there is at least one sighting of Stephen Dale somewhere around there. There's I feel like there should be like a Wikipedia page of all of those all the places where you can find Stephen Dale. I forget what track it is, where they're on on top of a Ferris wheel together or something like that. I think it may be Suzuka, possibly. Trying to think of what other tracks end up being ones that have ones that end up having a Ferris wheel around them. That's a very interesting note to note. The lack of Ferris wheels around around many racetracks. I think Daytona has one.
Daytona has one. Le Mans has one. Suzuka has one.
Gotcha. So it's one of those three where Stephen Dale are on the Ferris wheel. This is a treading new territory here, folks, and trying to spot it. It's like Where's Waldo, but where's Stephen Dale? So iRacing's own version of Where's Waldo, man, they've really got everything covered here in the sim.
Well, I will say this: being an older gent that I am, Dale Earnhardt Jr. has been sim racing for a long time, and he's actually told stories about his dad telling him that'll never amount to anything, but he will absolutely tell you that he wouldn't be as good at Watkins Glen in his NASCAR Cup car without having sim racing being part of his preparation. So he is a big fan of iRacing, so much so that he's he's the executive director and is a major investor in keeping this thing going. So we're big fans of Dale Jr. for that.
Yeah, Dale Jr. is a pretty awesome guy in the world of sim racing. I'm trying to remember a interaction I had with someone who was kind of in that sort of Dale Earnhardt Jr. circle, so to speak, as we see a fight developing between Aaron Reuter and Lincoln Olsen for the final podium spot. Those two have swapped positions about 14 times in the span of the past 10 seconds, so they're locked steady in a very close fight for that final podium spot. Looks like Olsen has withstood the challenge as it stands for the time being. However, we may end up seeing that fight flare up yet again, as I think that may have been Christensen, the number 13 car, blinking out of existence a little bit farther in the back shot. So the UFO activity very much continuing in Connecticut at Lime Rock Park, as we're going to see these drivers go on to the start-finish straight away for one of the last times in this race. Say one of the last, they've still probably got about 5 laps left to go side by side. Reuter and Olsen. Olsen on that inside line, Reuter on the outside. A little bit of nose cone damage on the front end of Lincoln Olsen's race car. I don't think that's helping him out a whole lot on that start-finish straight away, as I think that may have been off-track moment. I think that may have been Jake Roberts in the Superlap car. He's going off the circuit, heading down into the corner. Just saw him in the corner of my eye, what felt like he was going about Mach 10. So he's rejoined the racetrack without any further incident, albeit effectively in no man's land in 12.
Yeah, he's. We'll get a replay here as we were seeing him coming down the front straight. The battle here between Reuter and Olsen. Reuter around the outside. Saw this earlier. I think Olsen did the same thing. Reuter says, I can do this too. Let me just hang on the outside till we get to turn 3, and I'll have the inside line. And they're still going to battle a little more. That's a really good battle all the way down through here. Even, getting down here to the no-name straight. Olsen looks like he's got the lead. And so that's the end of that battle for there. But eventually, Reuter gets the lead. It gets the advantage, and he's up to P3. So we're seeing Jake Roberts coming around through turns 1 and 2, continuing on his way. Not really much of a battle, as well as Soto, not really much of a battle up here, leading by 3 seconds over Rolls.
Yeah, so it looks like that fight has just about stabled between those two racers, about 2 seconds covering them as it stands at the moment. So I will wrap this bow around this storyline that I was going to say. I say storyline, it's more just so a story. So I rarely, if ever, talk about it when I'm on the air here on Apex Racing TV, mainly because when I first started this broadcasting stuff, I decided that I wasn't really going to kind of have that cross-promotion in an odd way, just because it kind of felt a bit... as that was a spin heading through turn number 2. That was Eric Christensen going off the circuit in the number 13 car, so looks like it's going to be not a whole lot of harm done there. So we see a big lockup from Ryan Goff heading down into the chicane. Getting back to the point I was going to mention, though, the small little storyline, the stuff that I was doing before broadcasting. I have a YouTube channel, which I nowadays rarely, if ever, post on, getting busy with all this broadcasting stuff, yapping people's ears off for a living. But it kind of centering around the world of motorsports and real-life motorsports history and some odd stuff that usually piques my interest. I remember there's this one video that I never ended up making. It was trying to figure out what exactly happened to a certain NASCAR chassis that was involved in a, not a fatal incident, but a very big crash in the world of NASCAR back in the early 2000s. I believe it was at Talladega. I believe it was Eric McClure at Talladega that had a very big crash in a nationwide race that year, and sadly gave him some pretty bad injuries that he had to deal with the rest of his life, as Olsen goes for a spin heading through the chicane, so that's going to drop him down another spot. We saw Lincoln Olsen battling hard earlier on in this race. However, things have blown apart for him. Was running in third, briefly was running in second. However, he's now dropped down to fifth as a result of that mistake heading through the chicane. That is going to be a real heartbreaker for Lincoln Olsen. Very careful, though, on the rejoin. I think that could have ended in disaster. Between himself and the driver's now slipped into fourth of Fritz. I think I'll have to wrap that bow around that storyline a little bit prematurely, because Russell Soto is on the final lap of this race. With 0 seconds left on the clock, Russell Soto going to complete as perfect of a season as he could possibly get. Russell Soto raced in 5 races. He's going to win in 5 races and take the checkered flag in the final race of this season. Soto victorious over Kevin Rold in P2. Then we have to wait a little bit more to get to Aaron Reuter in the number 27 car, going to round out your podium in third. That's a very long way to get to Fritz, who's finishing 10 seconds back of Aaron Reuter. There's Sean Fritz now coming out of the final corner. Looks like that car is not entirely up to full song. Doesn't really need to be full throttle coming out of the corner. That was Lincoln Olsen as well, farther back, crossing the finish line now to round out your top 5. I will eventually finish that storyline before we wrap things up here on Apex Racing TV, but Soto putting the wraps on a brilliantly driven season.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been the class of the field, and you know, with his experience level on real life racing as well as in the sim, well deserved. He's had some good challenges during the year, so it wasn't just, you know, easy does it all the way around, but well done to complete the season, win the championship, and it's been fun to watch everything unfold. Seeing some drivers look like they really improved their racing during the course of this season. So it's very, very fun to be a part of this.
Yeah, it was a brilliant season from start to finish. Right as I was looking away from my screen for a second, that Sean Gaynor upside down. How in?
I think that was basically a straight line from turn 1. So basically,
gotcha.
Straight,
into the runoff area. The runoff area through that section, actually, a nice, interesting historical point to raise is the fact that that was originally meant to be a longer version of Lime Rock. The track that we know and love today was originally going to be the short course. There was going to be a longer run through the mountainside that was never constructed, and probably never will be constructed, considering some of the not in my backyard people that live around the racetrack. Hey, that's kind of what you get for building your house around a racetrack. Actually, I say that it's rural Connecticut. There may be some houses there that are built back during like the 1770s that people still live in. Believe me, I'm from the city of Philadelphia, so I feel like I can speak to that with a little bit of efficacy. I will finally try and get the story out. So the person who I know that I have interacted with, who was at one point an employee for Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his Dirty Mo Media company, was actually forgetting his name now all of a sudden. Matthew Dillner, who used to be on the Dale Jr. Download and also hosted the Peacock show Lost Speedways with Dale Earnhardt back in the day. With my old YouTube adventures, I once had to get in contact with him asking about a chassis, which just never really was asked about at all, and exchanged a couple of messages with him on Facebook Messenger back in like 2022 or something like that. So it was very odd for 17-year-old me to have an encounter like that with someone who I wouldn't say grew up watching on the Dale Jr. Download, but watched a whole lot of in my formative middle and high school years. But with that story finally told, I think we can run through the results for the final time this season. Russell Soto making it 5 out of 6 races. 5 out of 5 are the ones that he participated in, taking yet another victory. Kevin Rold going to finish 3.8 seconds behind in second. Aaron Reuter going to round out your podium in third. Then we have Sean Fritz in fourth. Andrew Gross in sixth. Sean Gaynor finishing in seventh. Andrew Mowat finishing this race in the 8th position. Finishing this race, actually, my apologies, Andrew Mowat finishing in 7th. Finishing the race in the 8th position there, jumping the gun a little bit, is Michael Schmidt. Finishing behind Schmidt, 1 minute and 5 seconds off the lead, a heartbreaker for a driver who was involved in that fight for one of the podium positions. Lincoln Olsen going to finish down in 9th. The last car to take the checkered flag on the lead lap is Shred McMillian in 10th, finishes 1 lap down. The same could be said about Jake Roberts in 11th. Eugene Clark finishing this race in 12th. Eric Christensen going to finish this race 1 lap down as well, with Ryan Gall finishing 2 laps down. And the rest of the drivers we have classified ran into some difficulties. Andrew Mallory finishing this race in 15th. Superlap 8 finishing in 16th, Michael Rodriguez in 17th, Chad Giedel in 18th, and Dominic Batts rounding out the cars that did take the start as a Superlap admin number 17 car, classified down in 20th, did not take part in any of the sessions that we had here this evening. Charles, I've given you this opportunity on the broadcast we've done thus far this season, so I'll give it to you again. Would you like to have a chat for one final time with the race winner of Russell Soto?
Yeah, let's bring Russell in here and we'll wrap up this season. So, Russell, congratulations. Final victory of the season. Had a pretty good run there at the start. You had some competition behind you, but able to just keep motoring and was able to use the lap traffic to build your lead.
Yeah, that was the name of the game. Just making sure that I can take advantage of that clear air. I know that the drivers behind me, especially Kevin, was going to be in the dirty air, and that it would be tough for him to have some front end grip. So really establishing, getting a gap in early into the race, as well as trying to make sure that they don't take advantage of the draft was key. So really happy to have able to at least put off about half a second midway through the race, and then the lap traffic helped widen that gap up towards the end. So it all worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just, if you want to, let's go ahead and just recap your season. You're pretty much every race was a win. So congratulations. Your thoughts on the season as a whole?
Thank you very much, guys. And as the organizer of this league, as someone who's been competing with these guys for the past couple seasons, it's been a great season. I think everyone overall had a great time, and that's the main objective, of course, with this kind of league. I think a lot of drivers came a long way, especially Lincoln. Very proud of that guy for, competing for a podium spot towards most of this race. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm just very proud of everyone who comes out to this race and these races, and looking forward to racing them again next season.
Absolutely. So we'll let you go ahead and let you go, but you'll get your thanks or your shouts out in, and we'll continue on with our interviews.
I want to give a thank you to you guys, Charles and Ron and Joshua, of course, behind the scenes, putting on a great broadcast. DRSCCA, of course, a great organization. If you're watching this series from YouTube, please join the league. We always welcome everyone coming in, all skill levels. Superlap for being a great sponsor. They put on a great show for us, as well as help more guys get into sim racing. My family back home in New Jersey, my girlfriend Tiffany, for supporting me in my real life racing, as well as sim racing too. All my friends back home, New Jersey, Michigan. And yeah, looking forward to next season.
Awesome, Russell. Congratulations, and we'll talk to you again soon, hopefully.
Thank you, guys.
And that right there was Russell Soto, who for the 5th time this season takes the victory. Series admin advantage may possibly, perhaps. He's just a blisteringly quick driver, real-life driver as well, with some experience in Formula 4 machinery. So don't get me wrong, he is just stunningly quick in all sorts of different race cars. One driver who certainly gave him a run for his money in this race, to be sure, is Kevin Rold, who's now joining us in the commentary booth. And now, Kevin, that looked like a pretty hard-fought show between yourself, Russell Soto, and Lincoln Olsen throughout the first half of the race. Second half kind of spread out a little bit there. So talk us through the race that we just saw here at Lime Rock Park.
Absolutely, Ron. It was definitely a high-intensity race. I think my heart rate's finally back down to normal now after that one. Me and Lincoln had a great battle. I was holding on to Russell for the first couple laps, and then once we caught up to some lap traffic, unfortunately, it kind of caused a gap. And then Lincoln got around for me, and unfortunately for him, I think he got into one of the lap cars and picked up some damage, so he ended up falling back. So it was tough break for him, but I capitalized on that and was able to hold out for the whole rest of the race.
Yeah, it still looked like a pretty exciting day of racing action, exciting night of racing action. I keep trying to autocorrect myself for whenever I'm on European time zone broadcast here on Apex, but still looked like a pretty fun night in these race cars. I want to ask you about how it's like driving these Formula 4s around this racetrack. Outside of that chicane, which may be a little bit of a pain in the butt, still looks like a pretty fun combination. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, absolutely. The chicane is very tricky. There's a very specific braking point and turn-in point. If you miss that, those sausage curbs, I'm sure you saw it during the race, are pretty massive and definitely not ideal to be hitting in these cars. As far as the rest of the track, it's very technical, and in such, these cars are pretty quick around here. The turns come at you quick, so there's not a lot of time to think in between turns. So it's a lot of action for 30 minutes, a lot of turns, and I think we had 36 laps, so it's quite a mental challenge to stay focused throughout the whole race, especially with so many turns coming at you.
I can imagine it was a really hard challenge and pretty much completely contrasting what we saw 1 week ago from this series at Circuit of the Americas. Had some awesome tracks that we visited all season long: Laguna Seca, Road Atlanta, Long Beach, where he took the victory, unless my memory is failing me, which it may very well end up doing, Watkins Glen, Coda, and Lime Rock Park. So I want to ask you this. This may be a little bit of a loaded question. What was your favorite racetrack from this season?
I might be a little biased, but I did really enjoy the Long Beach circuit. I know, unfortunately, Russell was not there for that one, but I think it was just I think these cars race really well there, and there's not a lot of room for error, so I really enjoyed that. And probably second place was Road Atlanta. I really liked that one as well. These cars are really fun there. Coda probably near the bottom, and Lime Rock probably somewhere in the middle. But I think it was a good mix of tracks, going from the longest track at Coda last week to the shortest track here at Lime Rock was a nice change of pace. I think the racing here was pretty good, and that probably showed on the broadcast.
Oh yeah, the racing all throughout this season was absolutely incredible, and I gotta say the runs through lap traffic with you three at the front of the field were pretty exciting to follow as well. It's capping off a pretty good season from you taking a victory and really putting in some very strong drives. So before we let you go and celebrate this second place run here at Lime Rock Park, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Ron. First of all, thank you guys for putting on the stream. It's been great throughout the whole season. And also want to thank Superlap for hosting the series and doing a great job there. And also thanks to Waterford Hills as well. Other than that, that was a great season, and I appreciate it.
And we appreciate you joining us here in the commentary booth. Kevin, thank you very much for the kind words as well. And hope to see you on track wherever it is in the not-too-distant future, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Ron.
And that right there was Kevin Rold finishing this race in P2. Trying to look to see, I think we have time for one more interview. So, Charles, would you like to round this season off with a last interview with Aaron Reuter?
Yeah, let's bring Aaron in. We'll get the whole podium out here. Aaron, congratulations on a P3. Looked like you were running top 5 most of the race, but were able to capitalize on some mistakes for some others and end up on the podium. So congratulations.
Oh, yeah. I definitely feel like I made my fair share of mistakes, too. I feel bad for Lincoln getting done dirty like that by a lap car, but that's racing, I guess.
It is indeed. Yeah, it's just one of those things is with these small tracks, you have to deal with the lap traffic sometimes, and that may end up making or breaking your race.
Oh yeah, I definitely had a couple of close calls back where I was at too. I don't know if you happen to capture any of them, but yeah, there was once I had to go too wide in the middle of the chicane because one of the lap cars locked up and was having a moment. But yeah, it's mainly attrition, which sucks. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've seen that in a couple races. So let me ask you the question that Ron asked Kevin just a minute ago. What was your favorite track of the season this season?
I think it'll be an unpopular one, but I really liked Long Beach. I think that produced some good racing for these cars.
That's exactly what Kevin said, by the way. So
Yeah.
not as unpopular as you think.
Yeah, I guess it's just it's really common to hate on the street circuits because they got walls in there. But I don't know. I think it's a really well suited track for this car. I really liked it.
Completely agree with you. So Aaron, we'll let you get your thanks in, and we'll let you go celebrate your podium, and we'll look forward to seeing you hopefully again very soon.
Oh yeah, thanks. And thanks to my family, everyone who helps with my real life racing, all my real life sponsors, all those people. I'm not going to go through it. And just everyone for keeping me encouraged, and then the DRSCCA for putting on the league, and you guys for taking up the broadcasting, and yeah, just everyone for putting this thing on, getting us good racing every week.
All right, Aaron, thank you very much. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. See you guys.
And that right there was Aaron Reuter rounding out our podium from the final race of this season. A season which was dominated essentially from start to finish by Russell Soto, who kicked the season off with a dominating run at Laguna Seca. He ended with a slightly less dominating run, but considering the very close quarters finish that he had at COTA just 1 week ago, certainly felt dominating in comparison. So Charles, before we wrap things up on the final broadcast of this season, final thoughts on this season?
Yeah, great season. Really enjoyed covering this league. Fantastic drive by all the guys. Really enjoyed the Superlap group being part of this and having drivers coming in and participating in these races. Just brought a different element to it, which I thought was very cool. From us old nerd techie guys who were all who remember LAN parties being all the rage there for a bit. So it was cool to have that as part of it. Having up to 8 guys in a room racing with each other, and then a bunch of other guys in other locations. So hats off to Superlap for not only having that, but also for helping sponsor. Thank the rest of the sponsors: Michigan Turn Marshals, Waterford Hills. Can't have these broadcasts without sponsors that are willing to help the Detroit Region SCCA out. To make sure that everything gets funded and gets put on and it's nice and smooth. So, thanks to all those people. And I really enjoyed it. And, hopefully I'll get a chance to be a part of it in future seasons.
Yeah, I'm gonna be keeping my fingers crossed as well, Charles. This season was a blast to cover. And as a member of the SCCA for 10 years, I can assure you that being a part of an SCCA league is always a very enjoyable experience. This season was fantastic to be a part of. It started 7 weeks ago, had that 1 week break for Halloween, but it has been 6 races of excitement with these Formula 4 race cars. However, the action ends right about now. I say that though, the action here on Apex Racing TV really never comes to a close. Coming up tomorrow, we got some action with the Radical Esports Cup, the 11th race of that official season, coming to you from Road America. We also got some action with the Rick Matek Mini-Mite Sports Car Challenge, round number 7 of that season, going to be running at Sebring, where some drivers are going to be trying to stake their claim on their respective championships in GT4 and LMP3 machinery. So gives you more reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action. But I think for one final time here from the DRSCCA Sim Racing Series presented by Superlap from this season, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Mullins, Charles Bichelle joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie doing a wonderful job working on the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching not just this broadcast, but all the broadcasts all throughout this season. Your support is always appreciated, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.